Welcome to the Storage Rebellion Show. Real conversations about building great storage businesses and becoming the kind of person capable of sustaining real freedom. Here's your host, Chris Michaels.
Hey everyone, welcome. I'm here with a good friend, Storage Rebellion insider, Nick Paul. Nick, thanks for joining us on the podcast, bud.
Yeah, appreciate it, Chris. I'm looking forward to it, man.
I'm looking forward to our conversation as well. You and I are going to be hanging out a little bit next month. We're going to be in Orlando. I don't think Orlando's ready for Nick Paul.
You know, better start prepping now or it's definitely not going to be ready. So.
Well, dude, you and I have known each other maybe 5-6 years at this point. You joined the Rebellion back when we started the Insiders group. And so I had the pleasure of knowing you for quite a while now. And so it's been really cool just to see your success, and not only your storage success, but how you've grown and how you show up in the Storage Rebellion community as well. It's been fantastic. And so I'm looking forward to our conversation. We're going to talk storage, but we're also going to talk some of the personal development side of it. But for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about who Nick Paul is.
Yeah, kind of just a high-level quick rundown. Name's Nick, live in southern New Mexico in a small town called Alamogordo. So we're in the area where the first atomic bomb was set off. So that's why I've lost all my hairs, because of all that fallout from the aftermath of that. But yeah, we're just south of Trinity Site. Beautiful area. But yeah, so live in New Mexico, got started in storage back in 2019, kind of started looking into it in 2018. But prior to that, had always had an interest in real estate. Grew up, had a really good friend that I grew up with whose grandpa was heavily involved in real estate and kind of at the time didn't know it, but was preaching into my life what real estate can do for you. And so went to college, got done with college, started working in real estate for a hospitality brokerage firm, helping people buy and sell hotels in the western part of the United States. Did that for about 8 years, decided that wanted to try and start investing in real estate on my own. And so started out with some smaller multifamily stuff to fix up, renovate, rent out, and then turn around and sell, and did the single family fix and flip stuff, and kind of ran the course. I think like many of us through that process, you start to realize that, hey, this is a lot of work and it is a job consistently. And not that storage isn't a job as well. There's just a lot less moving parts to it. And so started looking at multifamily. Multifamily was super hot at the time, 2015 to 2018, when I was trying to find something that was actually of size that would be worthwhile to invest into. And then the markets were just pricing me out. I couldn't afford anything. Stumbled upon storage, and one thing led to another, and started being able to put some deals together, and here we are. So
Yeah, I love it, dude. And what were you, when you got into storage, what were you after?
Man, so, the main thing was being able to create some time freedom, right? I think that anybody that gets into real estate, I think really at the core is trying to chase some type of freedom. And it's all typically centered around that freedom of time, to free up your time, to have a business that isn't so demanding that you have to show up, 5 or 7 days a week to run and operate it. And the little that I knew at that time, storage seemed like it would be a good fit for that it would allow me to kind of mold my lifestyle into having a business as well. And so, yeah, I mean, it's turned out to be the case, right? Sometimes are more glamorous than others, but as a whole, the last 6-7 years in storage have been a great experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. So
yeah, and we'll dive into some of the storage specifics as far as the portfolio, the deals. I'd love to even touch on the first one that you got started, but I'm curious, how has life changed as a result of you getting into storage and now where you are today?
Yeah, getting into storage has really, the journey, and I think it's the people that I've been able to surround myself with, right, is really brought a lot of value to my life that isn't just storage focused, right? And it's not necessarily just business focused. There's a lot of people in the storage business, and especially through the Storage Rebellion community, that have a desire to kind of grow as human beings in ways that I hadn't been able to find elsewhere. And it's been
Mhm.
a true blessing, for a lack of a better word. And that's probably the most fitting word, is to be around and surrounded by people that are smarter than me, that have different ambitions than me. But at the core, we're all kind of trying to do the same thing, right? We want to be good people doing good things, serving in some way, shape, or form. And so there's a lot of lessons. I mean, I could talk for 45 minutes just on the life side of it. As I've gotten a little older, I'm 42, about to be 43. I've come to realize, and it's my opinion, that if you're chasing the business first and not focusing on the personal and your own personal life, you're putting the cart before the horse, right? If you're not sound in your personal life, it's going to make it very, very difficult to hit the goals and benchmarks that you want to achieve in your business life, right? If we don't have our own house in order, you can go out, and I've done it for the last couple decades, and try to out hustle things that I was just putting off that were on the personal side of my life, right?
Mhm.
And it caught up to me to be a realization that, oh man, hey, now that I've addressed those things in my personal life, business has become so much easier to do. That they
Mm.
really go hand in hand when your house is in order. I don't know how to
Yeah.
put it any more clearly than that. I look back, just reflecting on the last couple of months, kind of been taking a look back over the last several years. One of the things that came up for me was, I've been a people pleaser, right? I've always wanted to try and do things. And so I had to work through and kind of figure out, hey, what's at the core of that? Why have I kind of taken on that persona, and how has that impacted me, not just in my personal life, but in my professional life as well? And it's been interesting to see and reflect on how that's impacted me. I know that I've had limited opportunities that have come to me because I was chasing I'm going to say yes to everything, instead of being willing to put up some
Mhm.
boundaries and say, hey, no, let me focus on this for the time being. And that's good enough. And it's going to get me to the places that I want to be. I know that I've taken on more than I probably should have, or said yes. And it's unfortunately caused me to pass up opportunities that would have served me better in
Mm.
the long run. But we're here today. And so all we can do is learn from that stuff. And
Yeah.
so that's the biggest thing to me, right? Like, we want to fail forward. We want to be able to get back up and keep going. And so if you're not learning those things, then you're not really growing, and evolving into kind of, what's the next version of myself look like.
There's so much truth to that because a lot of people get hung up on the mistakes or the failures and they look at them as they are setbacks. I'm similar to you where I see those as opportunities. The fact that you've uncovered what not to do already puts you a step ahead of the person behind you, right? So as long as you continue to pick yourself back up, you continue learning from those mistakes, it's not realistic to expect everything to go perfectly, and that's totally okay. And I think it's healthy to come to terms with that. That's how we grow, right? We'll never grow if we're not challenged, if we don't make mistakes. And so I like how you said that. I'm curious, I want to go back to your storage journey. Let's go to deal number one. Talk to me a little bit about what that deal looked like, how you found it, and what transpired as a result of getting into that first deal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a funny story, right? We in the business of storage, one of the hot topics these days is, how do you manage existing customers' rates, right? Well, how I got into storage was, I was renting a storage unit at a facility, and I got a letter in the mail from them, and it said, "Hey, dear Nick, we're going to be increasing your rate by X dollars starting on this date." And I said, "To heck with this. That's too much." So I was at a pain point. I decided, hey, I don't want to pay that. So I went and found another storage facility here in Alamogordo. Guy had units available. He was super old school. Met him on site. He had a physical paper lease with him, started filling it out. And as we got to the end of it, I asked him, hey, would you ever consider selling this place? And sure enough, he was willing to entertain that conversation. He wanted to go play some more golf and spend some more time fishing. And so we ended up talking for what probably took 4 to 5 months before we really got to a point of having a purchase agreement executed. And and ended up buying the place from him. He's a great guy, kind of considered him a mentor. It wasn't that he was a mentor in the terms of running a highly successful storage business. He just had a lot of great life advice. He's
Mm,
pushing late 80s now and still enjoy talking to him. But yeah, that was my first deal. Bought it in 2019. It was a good opportunity to get in. It was
mhm.
a 32,000 square foot facility, drive up units, non climate
Nice.
controlled, that was mismanaged. Somebody that was meeting people to pick up rent, didn't have anything digitized or any type of online facility management software. It
Mhm.
was pretty easy. That was when storage was really turning into, hey, this is a business that needs to have a lot of or can have a lot of tech behind it. And
Mhm.
so we started implementing those things and we took it from doing, I want to say it was pushing like 85 to $90,000 a year in gross rent when we had bought it, and to just in end of 2025, I think we did $223,000 in gross
Whoa.
revenue. So there was a ton of upside and a ton of opportunity there.
When you got into that, what led you to exploring buying that facility?
I had started looking into storage prior to making that move when I got the rate
Okay.
increase and it was forcing me out of my unit. I had found the Storage Rebellion's Facebook page at the time, back when it was, the OG Facebook page is where it was at, and just kind of started digging into that. That's why I asked the question when I met the guy. It was just like, hey, I don't know a ton about this storage thing, but from what I've seen through the Storage Rebellion, it seems like it's a good thing to be invested into.
So you really ramped up that first facility. What were some of the main things that you had to do to get it where it is today?
Yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of people, we put in a automated gate and keypad system. We added some cameras in there, but the main overhaul came on the back end of stuff, things that the customer didn't see physically, right? It was just setting up a management system that allowed them to have access to their accounts online, to be able to pay online, and to streamline just that whole process to be more effective and efficient. We set up a Google business page. The guy
Mm,
before didn't have a Google business page, there was no online presence. He was simply relying on word of mouth to carry his business. And that works for somebody that at the time he was 80 years old and this wasn't a primary income generator for him. So making 80,000 a
mhm.
year less whatever minimal expenses he had was pretty good money.
And then from going from one to how many are you at again? Is it seven?
Yeah, so we've got 7 facilities currently.
And what was the process moving from one to seven? And how long did it take to get to where you are?
Yeah, so I mean, it went quickly. We got in at a good time. I think that in 2019 and through even 2022, there was a lot of opportunity there. The market was just burning full steam ahead, especially in the tertiary markets that we're invested into. There's a lot of mom and pop operators that were at the age where they wanted to get out of it. They're ready to retire. And so I was just hitting the phones left and right. My business plan before, when we got in was to just solely focus on New Mexico. That's where I wanted to be. I know the state. I've got a lot of
Mhm.
ties to the state and a great story to tell because of my ties to the state. And
Yeah.
so felt that that was a good, so I was calling anybody and everybody that I could in New Mexico, and it paid off. I don't
Yeah.
know that there was any magic answer except for I was just putting in the work to do it. We bought one facility in November 2019, closed on our second in January of 2020, turned around in 2021 and bought
Mhm.
2 more facilities. And then in 2022, bought another 3 facilities. We've sold 2 of them since that time, and then acquired another boat and RV storage facility just in the end of the third quarter of 2025. So
Nice.
still looking to grow, but just being a lot more tactical about what we want to buy, really
Mhm.
trying to make sure that we're hyper focused on what's going to be a good fit, not just buying something to buy something.
Yeah. It's funny because, back when you were growing and you were just doing the work, like you said, making the calls back in 2019, it was just a crazy time because similar to what you were saying, nobody really knew how hot storage was or was going to be. And, I found around that same time as you, I think it was 2019 or 2020, I did my first three deals were within 12 months. And I had the mentality afterwards that because I was just getting into storage then, I was like, this isn't that hard. Like
Mhm.
we could find deals pretty easily, right? Like three deals in a year is pretty solid. But that's not the case anymore. Obviously, the supply and demand has changed for storage. A lot more people are interested in it. How has your approach changed today? It sounds like you're a little bit more picky about what you're looking at. You're not buying just to buy, which is obviously a smart thing to do. But how has your approach changed on what you're looking for, how you're kind of analyzing deals?
Yeah, I think that my focus now is shifted from trying to go after anything and everything, right? When I first got in, it didn't matter the size. Like I just wanted to buy another
Yeah.
facility or buy a facility. And I've really realized that the size can really be a benefit going from something that's 5,000 square feet to 30,000 square feet. There's not a whole
Mhm.
lot of change in the back end operations of it. And now that we've got a team in house that's running and operating this, I wouldn't ever buy something that's 5,000 square feet, but I really would love what I'm going after properties that are, at a minimum 20,000, but they've got to have room to expand upon to be able to push that envelope closer to 40 or 50,000 square feet,
Mhm.
over time, or 30,000 is a minimum if there's no expansion room available. I just see that there's a lot more benefits to being in that size of a site versus
Yeah.
something that's smaller. And so that's what we're primarily going after.
Yeah. And as far as your operations, talk to me a little bit about the team that you got today. Who's helping you? How are you running your storage business? It obviously probably looks a little bit different today than it did when you're at the first deal. I'm curious at what point, maybe it's just an evolution, but at what point did you start really focusing on building the team?
So I guess just kind of to go over that journey, right? You're looking at right now the team back when I started in 2019, I was all the things, which
Yeah.
was beneficial. I think that there's a lot of value that can be gained from being in the trenches and knowing all the different aspects of the business, right?
Mhm.
There's some respect that comes from it with my team now because I've been there and I've done everything that I've asked them to do, from answering the phones to cleaning out units, you name it, I've done it. And so started out just as myself. When we bought a package of three facilities in 2022, and those sites had a manager with them, and that was
Mhm.
the first real employee that I had.
Mhm.
So I had kind of delayed growing the team, good, bad, or indifferent. Hindsight being 2020, I probably would have built the team out a little sooner. That's when we got our first employee. And then I started to realize, hey, this is to free up my time and not be bogged down in the day to day of running the storage. I had to start building that out. So in 2020, 23 and 24 started slowly adding one person at a time. And even to this day, it's still a work in progress, right? I don't have
Sure.
everything figured out. I'm still learning. My business is going to constantly change and evolve, but we've got five people currently that are employees with us, in addition to our boots on the ground maintenance team and then just various vendors. But there's five of us that are running the day-to-day operations for the storage business. And so yeah, it's been interesting. I had several full-time employees and I thought that was a
Mhm.
great fit. And it was great until one of them decided to leave, and now we're trying to fill a gap. And so we're
Sure.
trying to change what the team looks like and how many hours everybody's working just to float some more coverage and see how that works. And maybe we change it up in
Yeah.
3 months.
I know every storage deal is a little bit different, but who is the first person, maybe outside of a boots on the ground, that you should consider hiring as you start to scale your portfolio?
Yeah, I think at a certain point, right, when we could get off into the weeds at what's the right time to start adding somebody onto payroll. And I know that people have a lot of varying different views and opinions on how they run and operate their business. I think that once you start getting up to 300,000 plus in gross revenue, you have the ability to hire somebody, in essence, be a manager of some degree, right?
Mhm.
I don't know if I would call them an operations manager at that point in time. It just depends. As you grow, you're going to need more people, but
Sure.
at 300,000, you can hire somebody probably even full time, depending on how much you want to have involvement in the business. It'll support that payroll cost, right? And
Mhm.
that could be either onshore or offshore. Maybe you find the labor cost is a little bit cheaper and you want to go that route. But my philosophy has always been that I want to be able to I want to provide jobs to people in the communities that I serve. And so I
Mhm.
strictly focus on making sure that we're hiring people here in the state of New Mexico and
Yeah, I
primarily in
love
the
it.
markets that either I live in or that we serve. And that's just something that's important to me. It's not right. It's not
Mhm.
wrong. It's just how I want to operate. And so yeah, that's been a big player in what we do. But yeah, I mean that 300,000 by 500,000, you should definitely have somebody that's kind of a manager of some sort that's
Mhm.
running and handling all the day-to-day stuff. I mean, you could go a lot of different directions. You could hire third-party
Sure.
management.
Yeah, a lot of it too just depends on what you're trying to achieve, what's going to help you get there. And then there's also that time freedom. As you start to scale, you want to develop that team because you don't want to be doing everything and you don't build a business to trap yourself in the business. And so I think that's great advice. Are you only looking to continue buying in the state of New Mexico or would you invest outside of the state?
Yeah, I mean, I think the opportunity would have to be extremely attractive to get outside of New Mexico right now, right? What I would go outside of New Mexico for is a boat and RV storage
Mm,
facility near a lake that I would love to eventually be able to have a lake house at, right? I love the water and would love to be by a lake. But yeah, I mean, the primary focus for the foreseeable future is going to continue to be in New Mexico just because the value of owning in my backyard, right?
yeah.
I know these markets. It's not a pain for me to have to travel to them. And yeah, it's just, I don't want to stray from that because it's
Mhm.
kind of the shiny object, of, oh, hey, there's opportunity over here. What was our original goal and mission? It was to build a
Yeah.
brand and a business in New Mexico. So I've been very focused on that aspect of it. Not that I haven't had my team doing cold call to people in Texas. We're New Mexico's neighbors to Texas. And so why not see if there's opportunities out
Yeah.
there that maybe we can get into or source and then get a piece of equity into it, turn it over to someone else, let them
There you go.
do the running and operating of it. We just found it.
I like that approach. I like that you're staying local. I think there's a ton of value to that. And similar to what you said earlier when we kicked this off, there's a lot of trust behind that. And over time, just because you're local, that trust starts to compound. I think it only becomes easier in time. I'd love to talk about that because I think it ties in really well to how you've built this portfolio. Relationships have clearly been a big part of that. Can you touch on how it's played a role in your
I
success?
think that relationships drive everything that we do in all aspects of our lives. And so putting an emphasis on that in business is equally as important as it is in our personal life, right? What I have found to be true in not just in storage, but in business prior to it is where I made the most impact, whether that was by closing a deal and earning some money, making some income, came from relationships that I was able to build with someone or multiple people. And
Mhm.
I think back to the first storage deal that I bought, it was based on the relationship, right? Like I asked the guy the question, but it took time to just get to know him.
Sure.
And what he saw in me was a reflection of his younger self. He's like, oh, he's never directly told me that. But when I've dealt with older sellers who I've bought stuff from, if I was a betting man, I would put money on that's one of the primary drivers. They felt some type of connection. They saw in me what they were doing 40, 50 years prior. And I think the goal, it's hard to do when you're starting, especially, right? You just want that first deal, but so much of this stuff has to marinate for months or
Mhm.
years before it actually materializes and comes to fruition. And so if I had a piece of advice for people is be willing to invest the time into those relationships and do it genuinely, because
Yeah.
that's going to serve you whether there's a business opportunity there or not. You never know when or how that relationship's going to pour into your life in some aspect. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, being willing to wait around, I mean, there's people that I still keep in touch with that it's been 5, 6 years on the storage side of things that
Yeah.
we've made contact, but nothing's materialized in terms of me buying. But I genuinely enjoy just checking on them to see how they're doing. Hey, how's your family? How are your kids? What do you have going on? What are you doing for spring break? What are you doing during the summer?
Mhm.
How are your holidays? Things like that. And that's where I think a lot of people get defeated, is that they aren't seeing results quick enough. And while there can be quick results in commercial real estate, I think that the vast majority of people would tell you that it's a long term play for a lot of this
Yeah.
stuff. Deals don't just take 30 days to get done. They draw out 60, 90, 120 days. They're more complex. And so the
Mhm.
relationships behind those have got to be deeper to be able to weather those types of processes. And yeah, it
Mhm.
takes time.
Yeah, when we're talking about cold calling, oftentimes people get hung up on, how many facilities did I call today or how many have I called this week or this month? And that becomes the metric that they're measuring. And personally, I feel like a better metric to measure would be how many relationships have you built? So when you're picking up the phone, is it just hey, you considering selling? No, okay, move on to the next. Or are you really getting to know that person? Hey, it sounds like business is going well. Tell me a little bit about that. How's the market been for you guys? What are you guys seeing? It sounds like when you're talking to new owners, you kind of have that same approach. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my goal, while it is ultimately to try and buy their facility, right? First and foremost, it's just to create a rapport with them. Like I want to
Yeah.
just build a bond of, hey, how's it going? Like I'm not here to just be the next guy that's gonna blow your phone up for a few days and your email or whatever. And then
Mhm.
because you didn't, say yes, I'm ready to sell right now, I'm on to the next, right? I'm not playing the mile wide, inch deep game. I'm playing
Yeah.
the mile deep and an inch wide, because there to me is more benefit in that over the
Yeah.
long term. And so I want to be very intentional about the people that I'm willing to keep in
Sure.
touch with. Some people just aren't worth keeping in touch with. And so I
Mhm.
don't put as much emphasis on, hey, I need to call them or I need to send them a handwritten note of just checking in, seeing how you're doing. Those folks just get the standard run of the mill once or twice a year. You looking to sell yet? So.
I love it. I have a very similar approach as I mentioned. I think that that is ultimately the best approach and consistency with it. It sounds like you're pretty consistent. You're doing the check-in, you're seeing how things are going with them. I think consistency is so valuable. I had a facility in South Carolina that I had been following up with because they owned in our market. I really wanted to buy it. And they kept giving me the same story. We're not going to sell it. If we do, it's going to the kids. And so I just kept checking in, right? Every 3 months, I'd reach out to them, give them a call, shoot them an email, just checking in. How's business been going? What are you guys seeing? Hey, by the way, if you guys ever change your mind about selling, would be really interested in taking a look. So I did that for 2 or 3 years, got the same story every single time. I just got to a point where I was like, it's not going to happen. And I probably went about 6 months. And then after that 6 month period, it just came to mind. I was like, let me see what's going on with that property. And I reached out to them and like, oh, we just sold it. I'm like, who'd you sell it to? And it wasn't even to their own kids. It turned out their kids didn't want it to begin with. And so you just never really know. The consistency of following up, having that relationship is key. And, it's not enough just to have the relationship. You got to make sure you're nurturing it as well. I appreciate you touching on that. I'm curious now that you're at 7 facilities, What drives you at this point?
At this point, it's, I enjoy the business aspect of it. I think there's a lot of fun stuff in being able to run and operate a business, right? There's a lot of critical thinking that gets looped into it. And that's what I enjoy the most, right? And I love the fact that we're really truly able to serve people in the communities that we're invested into. I think that there's a ton of value in being able to offer a product and a service that people need and to do it well, right? We have a ton of pride of ownership. I want to make sure that what we're offering people is something that I can be proud to say that, hey, I'm putting my name on that and I'm happy to walk around and tell people, yeah, oh, yeah, we own that place, not in a bragging way, but if it comes up. But that's really what drives me these days is that
Sure.
continuing to slowly grow effectively and efficiently because I enjoy it more than anything else. If
Yeah.
I wasn't doing this or if I tried to work myself out of being involved fully, I don't even know what I would do. I'd be off trying to do some other business stuff. So might as well stick with what I know and keep enjoying it. I enjoy providing a living for the people that work for us. I love that they have the opportunity to come work for what I think is a great culture and work environment to also help us serve the customers. So
Yeah. I love how your business is beyond just you and your family. You're looking to serve others as well. I think that's huge. And I'm curious, you and I talked a little bit about this when we kicked off. We were talking about the personal development side of things. How have you specifically had to grow personally in order to get to the place that you're at today?
I had to realize, you know, I wish I would have realized it sooner, but I had to realize that I can't do all this by myself, right? And that
Mm.
you've got to be able to empower other people, surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. I think the Storage Rebellion's a great place to be able to do that, right? I mean, you hear it said all the time, you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. And so the way that I've got to where I'm at today and I'm continuing to evolve is by learning that I can't take it all on by myself. I've got to build out a team that I can trust to do that. It's constantly learning what works and what doesn't. But the minute that I was willing to give up control and put the right people in place to execute on what the vision was, it made my
Mhm.
life a heck of a lot easier. Even if they
Mhm.
were only doing it 80% as well as I could do it, it still is getting done in a manner that is efficient and sufficient for the job that's required, right? Storage is
Mhm.
not life or death. And so there's a lot of flexibility in how things can get done and it doesn't impact the customer experience and the service that we offer to people. So
Yeah. You've mentioned service and your team a few times. As you've grown, what's behind having employees and empowering them to enjoy what they're doing and do a great job at it?
yeah, I mean, I think that they have to feel that they're really truly part of the business, right? You have to give them ownership of whatever their
Mhm.
role is. I hate micromanaging because number one, it requires too much time for me to do that. And so
Sure.
I've got other things that I would rather do. But we've got to empower the people to do their job and to do it well. And part of that is being able to delegate tasks and to tell them how to do it, teach them and show them what's the proper way, and then let them take ownership of that and provide
Mhm.
feedback and, you know, teaching along the way as they make missteps. I tell everybody that we hire that you're going to make mistakes. Okay. I want you to make mistakes because you're
Mm.
going to learn from that and you're going to know that next time, okay, hey, I've been there, I've done that before, don't do it.
Yeah.
And we also really try to give people the power to find solutions, right? We want
Mm.
them to, if you encounter a problem, don't come and ask, hey, what do you want me to do with this customer, right? It should be, here's what's going on. This is how I think we should handle it. What do you think? Because if
Mhm.
they're not coming to us having critically thought through that issue that they're facing, all we're doing is just setting ourselves up to have a manager who's constantly having to just answer and
Yep.
direct and guide. And that's not what we want. We want people that can started a customer service rep role and worked themselves up into a management role within the company
Mhm.
over time. So,
Ton of great advice there. I so appreciate you being here. I could probably talk with you another couple hours. I'm going to save that for Orlando. I know we're going to have plenty of time to connect and hang out, but I want to thank you for being here and sharing so much insight and value in your journey. Before we hop off, the last question I would have for you is what would be the biggest piece of advice you'd like to leave folks with who are getting into this journey for the first time?
man, on a joking side, I would say that anyone who says that storage is passive has clearly never had a tenant who tries to call and pay their bill with a story, right? So don't think that this is just a super passive business. But in all seriousness, I think the biggest piece of advice or encouragement that I'd give people is that if you're whatever you're doing, whether it's storage or otherwise, right? If you're doing it because you're passionate about it and because it's the right thing, it's going to serve you well in the long run, whatever that is. Part of our core values is honesty and integrity. And every time that I've been in a position where I've wondered why something is amiss, not that we've, crossed the lines on those things, but I'm always drawn back to, hey, are we doing things honestly? Are we doing things with integrity? And when we're flourishing and when things are going really well, I can tell that we're really living in that. And so that's where I
Mhm.
would encourage people to kind of write down those things. What are your core values and what's really going to drive you? Because that's going to give you the fuel and the motivation and ultimately the reward factor that you're looking for, not just in business, but in life too. And so spend the time doing that stuff and then everything else will fall into place as it should.
I love it. Nick, appreciate you, brother. Thanks for being here.
Appreciate it, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening to the Storage Rebellion Show. For resources, support, and a community that has your back, visit storagerebel.com. We'll see you next time.